I look at this lineup, John, and Desjardins is going to be on. National Bank is going to be on. You know,
Great.
ATB, who I know is in the midst of revamping their app. And the head of that department, which is Bernardo's girlfriend, from what I understand.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's really cool. I see her name on the
We
list.
better get that one.
I know.
No
I
way.
know. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a secret or not. I hope I didn't let anything, but he told me, he
Oh,
goes, yeah,
Desjardins?
my girlfriend is up in, Canada and blah, 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 right? So I know that's
That's
cool.
too funny.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's a great lineup. And like I said, BMO and TD, who have always kind of rejected us in this area, are sending a lot of people. So really cool. That's all I can say. It's
Awesome.
really cool.
And I think, Frank, I mean, unless I hear otherwise from you, I'm planning on, obviously making it very conversational like we talked about, but I really think the bulk of the material is just explaining what the studies are and explaining how there's 4 studies now and the differences and the nuances between them.
Yeah, that's all. Like it's just there's been some confusion around this. This is just about, hey, getting you the information, answering some questions, getting all the pertinent stuff, because I keep sending out all this information and email gets lost and stuff. People resonate when they talk to us, and hey, we got 29 attendees. That's really good for this.
Awesome.
So I'm really pumped.
Yeah, no, and Frank,
Guys,
as you know, I mean,
my boss's girlfriend is attending.
yeah, there you go.
I know.
Oh, that's actually my boss's boss there, Bianca. So, so one more layer of reporting on my side.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I hope she dials in now. Let's, because that'd be awesome.
Wait, what's her name?
Jennifer Ishiguro.
Ishiguro?
Yeah.
I'm
See her
going to
down.
creep on her now, Frank.
All right. You know what? Don't get me in trouble with this. All right, guys.
We won't say anything.
Yeah.
Won't say anything.
What? This is Jonathan and I are going to get in so much trouble.
So, like we talked yesterday, Bianca, you do your thing, then turn it over to me. I'm going to go for a couple of minutes, if that, John, and then I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then you can dive in, and I'll kind of set the stage on, we don't have that many slides. We've got lots of time. This is designed to be conversational. Ask your questions, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Bianca, like I said, if I'm having any trouble unmuting them or getting that question out, I'll just holler at you if that's all right.
Yeah, no worries. No pressure now. Yeah, no worries.
Hey, John, do you know, are we still, like, we're in field right now for this, right? And we're going to be in field. I've got it till April 10th. Do you have anything different, or is that?
That's it. That's exactly what I got. We started 2 weeks ago, and then I'm going to be kind of a little bit ambiguous about when, but I'm going to say we have about 2 more weeks in field.
Okay, all right, because I was going to mention that in kind of my setup, and then we can get back to that as well. So yeah, so I've got it as March 13th to April 10th.
Yeah, that's right. It's just Frank, sometimes
I know
a
it
day or
varies.
Too early or late. Yeah.
Right. So
that's generally right.
Yeah. Cool. What else do you guys want to talk about?
We got a few minutes, and then we said we're going to get started. What, Bianca? Do you recommend 2 or 3 minutes late?
Yeah. So keep an eye, guys, on the attendees tab, just so that right now we haven't started the broadcast, so attendees are on hold. So what I'll go ahead and do is, everybody's on mute right now. But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and mute all of us in a second here, and then we'll go ahead and I'll announce, as we see the first person come on, or first couple people right at the top of the hour, I'll announce, hey, we're going to go ahead and get started in a few minutes here. Just wait for some extra attendees, and So I'm just going to go ahead and mute us just in case some people hop on early.
Hey, Bianca, just really quickly.
Mhm.
I have been messing around with my screen a little bit. I just wanted to make sure that it's full screen mode right now. Everything looks good on your guys' end.
It does.
Yep.
Does it look good for you, Frank?
Great.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and mute us. And we will go from there.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Go ahead and keep the chat window open, guys, or keep an eye on it for me as well.
Will do.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good luck. Hello and good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started here in a few minutes. We're just going to let other attendees jump on the line and we'll get started in just a few minutes. We're very excited that you're here. Thank you. Hello and good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. JD Power is very excited to be introducing 3 new Canadian digital studies this year in 2019. Today you'll be joining JD Power's Senior Manager of Digital Solutions, John Sundberg, as well as our fabulous Financial Services Account Director, Frank, to walk through these studies before the results hit the headlines. So just so that everybody knows, today's session will be recorded, and you will have the opportunity to ask questions. We'll try and take as many questions as we can. We do want today's session to be very interactive. This is your opportunity to ask questions of the experts and to engage with our team. So you will also have the opportunity to raise your hand, and we will try after the presentation to interact and to address those raised hands as well. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Frank. Frank?
Thanks, Bianca. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining. As Bianca said, we wanted to conduct a session with to take everybody through the new studies that we're introducing this year in the digital space. We know how what an important channel that is for everybody. Just a little bit of background. So 2 years ago, we introduced the mobile app satisfaction study in Canada as well as the US. The US has had the credit card mobile app as well the last couple of years, and this year we're bringing the mobile as well as online credit card and banking to Canada. So as Bianca said, there's 3 new studies being introduced on top of the existing mobile app study. We're currently fielding right now with our panels. So we started around mid-March, and we're going to continue for the next couple of weeks. We're scheduled for April 10th, but that may vary a day or two. We're releasing the studies on Tuesday, June 18th. So there's going to be, one press release announcing the results of the 4 individual studies for Canada, and this is also happening in the US as well. And then subscribing firms would have the opportunity to get the data on the 18th of June, and then we'll be issuing a press release on the 20th of June. As Bianca said, we don't have a great deal of a great number of slides, so we want to keep this interactive and answer as many questions as we can with you. And this is your chance to this is our chance to help you understand what we're doing and get you ready for the next couple months as we start to release these. So with that, why don't I turn it over to my colleague John Sundberg, who's going to walk us through, and John has spent, and I'll let him introduce himself with his background. John, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Frank, and good morning, everyone. Again, thanks to Bianca and Frank for the introduction. As Frank mentioned, I'm John Sundberg on the Digital Solutions team here at JD Power. And I really appreciate you all taking the time to join and just to learn a little bit more about our digital banking and credit card studies. My background here, just to give you a little bit of that, is over the last 8 years, I've been working on all these digital web evaluation and app evaluation studies. And it's certainly not only studies in financial services, but I run and manage a variety of similar studies across industries. So we have similar studies in automotive, in travel, insurance, utility, just to name a few. And really that's one of the best parts about these digital studies is we have cross-industry benchmarks and cross-industry comparisons and best practices that we can share with you. In terms of this morning, though, as Frank mentioned, we certainly want this to be as conversational as possible. And the goal or the intent today is really just to educate you on what these studies are, excuse me, what the methodology is behind them, what we're measuring, and just to give you a tidbit of analysis and kind of how we do that analysis. And so we'll show you a few examples of some of the analysis that we've done in the past. As Frank mentioned, we certainly don't have material for the entire hour. So please do jump in, ask questions, or seek clarity in any of the slides that we walk through today. And I believe I already saw one question around, are we able to email the dates that you just announced? Yeah, we will be able to email any type of dates in terms of study fielding, publication, and then Bianca, I'll work with you on actually sending out this deck, which has some of those dates as well. So I'm going to pause there. If there are any initial questions, I'll answer those. I don't see any coming in on the chat yet, but let's go ahead and then move on to the next slide. So I want to introduce the study. Today we're talking about the J.D. Power 2019 Canada Digital Banking and Credit Card Satisfaction Studies. And notice that it does say studies there at the end, plural, at the end of the name, and that's because it's actually 4 different studies that come off a J.D. Power platform. And I promise on the next slide I will tell you, what those 4 studies are, some of the differences, the nuances between them. But before we get into that, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the key points and some of the outcomes that all of these studies, all 4 of these studies address. At the heart of it, these studies all provide very, I'll say, similar outcomes, and it's based off a mix of qualitative data and quantitative data that we have. And so the outcomes are listed there in the bullet points at the bottom of the slide. But to start, first we're able to pinpoint key dimensions of satisfaction on both apps and online. So we actually can look at, what features are driving satisfaction, or even, what features or enhancements customers are specifically calling for on your website or on your app. So we can certainly figure that out via the qualitative analysis that we do in Verbatims. Also, because this is a syndicated study with multiple banks, multiple credit card issuers profiled, we can show what's driving best-in-class performance. What best-in-class is doing different in key areas of the app or key areas online on the website, and why customers are responding, particularly well to that experience. Then, of course, what's most important is we give actionable recommendations for improvement, right? And that's based on, I'll say, relative weaknesses or relative areas of opportunity. And so when we give recommendations, we show not only, where there is a potential area of opportunity, but then a best practice in banking and credit card and even other industries if applicable, to give you an idea of, a different user experience or a different user interface design that customers are responding well to, and that is seeing, really good scores in another area. So let me pause there, see if there are any questions. I don't see any that have come in yet. So I'm going to go ahead and click on to the next slide, but feel free, to raise your hand, ask questions as we kind of go along, and I'll be happy to address them. All right, so I mentioned that we have 4 different studies, and each of these are, I'll say, available to you, really pending what your needs are or what the priorities are on your current digital roadmap, right? And the easiest way, I think, to understand these studies is to break it out into a banking and credit card sections. So if we kind of start on the left here, this is the, I actually do have a couple questions that I want to address before I get to these. Will you be sharing the survey? Yes, Miriam, we can absolutely share the survey. I'll make sure I get that to Frank, and he will distribute that today. Thanks, and it would be great if you can share from mobile app studies as well. Yeah, we'll share all of the studies when it comes to that. All right, so back to where I was talking about the 4 different studies. Starting on the left-hand side, we have our digital banking studies, and we have 2 digital studies that fall under banking. First study is a measurement on the experience that customers are having with their mobile banking app. That's on the far left. And we ask a variety of questions on that. I promise to explain more about the methodology and the questions that we ask in a minute. But again, the first study is about the experience a customer is having with their banking app. Now, if you move 1 to the right under that number 2 there, the second study we have available is the experience customers are having with the online website for banking. So fairly similar in what we're asking customers to do and interact with, but the measure is completely different in the sense that it's a different channel, right? First banking study evaluates the app. The second study evaluates the website. And then in terms of brands that are profiled, we measured the same brands across the 2 banking studies there on the left-hand side. You can see them there, and the selection of brands to profile is based off of market share. Now, if I can direct your attention further to the right-hand side of the slide, the next 2 studies each fall under credit card satisfaction. And essentially, we did the same thing as we did for banking. So the 3rd study is a measurement on the experience that customers are having with their mobile credit card app, right? And then the 4th study, of course, is measuring the experience customers are having with the online website for credit card. And the profiles issued, again, for studies 3 and 4 are listed there on the right. And again, same as banking, the selection of issuers to profile was based to market share. Really, the last thing I want to note on this slide, and then I'll see if any other questions came in, is that all 4 studies are distinct measurements. So a study award is going to be issued for each. Miriam, absolutely. I will make sure I get you a copy of this presentation. And then I do want to clarify, someone earlier asked for the questionnaire. It is coming off of one platform, so it will be one questionnaire with actually all 4 studies on that questionnaire, and you'll see the different programming logic and the different type of questions that we asked pending that logic. But I'll certainly have Frank send out that information shortly. Let me see if there's any other questions that came in before I move on.
And John, just to chime in, we do actually have a study guide document available, which we will go ahead and send out. The feedback that we've been receiving from our clients so far has been that it's a bit more digestible than the actual survey document itself or the questionnaire. Sure. And so what that details is the characteristics of customers surveyed, the customer experiences which are explored in this study and studies, the topics addressed in the survey questions, the overview of insights provided, the subscription deliverables in a bit more detail, some use cases within your organization, as well as some more details about the ways that we help our clients at JD Power, and a little bit more background about our company for anybody who maybe hasn't had the opportunity to partner with us in the past.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bianca. So just to kind of recap, we'll absolutely send this presentation out. We'll send the questionnaire for those of you that want that level of detail, and then, as Bianca mentioned, we'll send out those study guides as well that were created that are a little bit higher level and kind of explain the different studies. There was another question that will we issue awards for all studies? Yes, right. All 4 studies again are distinct measurements, so a study award is going to be issued for each. Okay, I'm going to jump into the next slide, and then I'll check on questions here in a minute. I know we're kind of getting into I'll say the nitty gritty, but I do want to make sure that everyone on the line has an understanding of what we're measuring and how we're measuring it. So this is the screening process, and the screening process is very similar for all 4 studies. So in order to be included in the study, the customer had to use one of the following channels that are on the left-hand side in that kind of gray box there. So for example, to be included in the banking app study, the customer had to have used their banking app in the last 30 days, right? Same thing for banking website. Customer had to have used their banking website in the last 30 days in order to be included. So on and so forth for credit card app and credit card website. So it's important to note that these are active and recent users of whatever channel they evaluated. But probably most importantly, what I want to make clear is a respondent was only allowed to evaluate one channel. So you're not going to get the same respondent evaluating the banking app and the banking website. Only one evaluation per respondent, right? Then of course, some of the more, I'll say standard screeners that we have across a variety of JD Power studies are listed there on the right. You had to be 18 to take the survey, had to be a resident of Canada, only evaluating your primary banking relationship. So that might be slightly different than some of the other studies you've seen. We are only asking customers to evaluate the app or the website for their primary banking or primary credit card relationship. So no secondary relationships here. And again, I'm going to pause really quickly, see if any questions came in and see if there's anything I can address here. All right, I don't see any questions. Bianca, holler at me if you see something and I don't, but I'm going to move on to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit more about the methodology. In a nutshell, this is kind of how the survey instrument works across all 4 studies. So each study, again, measuring different channels, different items, but fairly similar instrument. So we ask customers, whether it be online website or the app, for information on their experience. So we specifically ask about experiences of, logging in, account activities, account management, rewards. Obviously, that's really only credit card that we ask those respondents about. And then we ask about just some other activities a customer may do. An example of that would be like a personal financial management tool. And then within each of those areas that I just listed on the left-hand side there, we ask for a little bit more detail. So for example, logging in. We ask customers what features they are aware of and what they use, right? So app customers would get questions, for login around fingerprint login or facial recognition or whatever features they're using to log in, whereas online would be slightly different, right? We would be asking slightly different things around username, password, security images, so on and so forth, right? And then once they tell us about the features and awareness of the features that they used, we ask, overall, how easy was it to log into your account, right? And then we do the same thing for the next task, like account activities. We ask about what account information customers are typically looking for, be it account balances for banking or amount of money due for credit card. And again, overall, how easy was it to review account activities? And then we go forth and do that for account management, rewards as well. And then once customers are through all of the different tasks, and this is a very detailed questionnaire where they take 15 to 20 minutes answering these questions and indicating awareness and usage, we ask about their overall experience in the following areas. How easy is it to navigate the app? What was the appearance of the app like? The availability of key information, range of service, and clarity of information provided. And essentially that is our satisfaction model that you could see a little depiction of there in the bottom right-hand corner. And this is a similar model to what we use across all of our digital studies, so across industries. And that's one of the great things is that we have this common model across industries, so we are able for applicable areas at least to compare results and compare best practices and pull that in. So again, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to check the questions box, see if anything came in. I've not seen anything yet, so I'm going to check chat as well. All right, I'm going to move forward to the next slide, and I promise this is our last methodology slide. But again, I just wanted to make sure that we have a solid understanding of what these studies are and what we're measuring. So it's a web-based survey. Everything we do for all 4 studies is web-based, and we do get our customer data via panel sources. Some of the study dates that are probably applicable to you all, we did field, I'll say, about 2 weeks ago, and we plan to close within, roughly within the next 2 weeks, and we'll keep you updated on our field close date as well. And then keep in mind that this study does publish in June, the middle of June, so June 18th is the published date. So I wanted to keep that on your calendar as well. Sample sizes by the different studies are shown there in the bottom left-hand side. Obviously fairly robust, more so on the credit card side, and that's simply because there are more brands that we're profiling on that side. You're probably maybe more concerned about brand sample, and just know that brand sample, depending upon where you are in your market share, is generally between 200 to 400 completes for completes by brand. And then finally, our index model, which is on the right-hand side. Most important to kind of note when it comes to our index model, this isn't customers telling us what's important to them, right? This is our statisticians using regression analysis to determine importance in each of the different factor areas. And, when you see a higher percentage, that particular area has a bigger influence, right, on overall satisfaction. So that factor has more of an influence on the overall satisfaction score than a area that has a lower importance. So I do see some hands raised here. Sarah, let me see if I can unmute you, and you should be good to ask your question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this is based on product type or if it's like all like if the sample is just for the bank itself. So as an example, if we need 1,700 Canada banking app satisfaction study to meet that target sample, are we looking at a variety of product types, or are you looking at just, TD as a whole, or 1,701 type? I'm not really sure how to explain it.
Yeah, so let me try to explain again, Sarah, and then if I don't answer your question, I'll certainly follow up on it. So let's take the Canada Banking App Satisfaction Study for an example. That would be looking at banking apps, across all of the different brands that we profiled, right? And so the entire industry would have 1,700 completes. A particular bank would probably have roughly between 200 and 400 completes for their banking app. So your specific sample to you would be between 200 and 400.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, good. And then I think I have something in the chat here as well. Yeah, Miriam, I can certainly talk a little bit more about the drivers selected. These drivers were selected actually even before we started these digital studies on the financial services. What we found is that the drivers really encompass a holistic view of the entire digital experience that a customer is having. And then what we do, obviously, is use those different tasks that I talked about earlier, things like login, account management, as KPIs, right? So those are the specific areas that we're able to look at and able to correlate to overall satisfaction to see which area is truly, very important for a particular app and which ones are driving customer satisfaction. And again, as I mentioned, I don't want to repeat myself, but that's one of the great things about these digital studies is the fact that we have similar models across industry, and we can do industry comparisons and compare scores and see what industries are doing well in particular digital channels. All right, so I don't see any other questions at this point. If I missed one, again, we'll certainly follow up on it. I just kind of wanted to give you a taste of the type of analysis that's done. This is very high level. Obviously, when we come out and give you custom presentations, it's specific to your website or specific to your app. But we also give you what's happening, in the industry. And so what you're seeing here is the scores for the industry last year's banking app study. So this is the banking app study last year. And on the left-hand side, you see our typical JD Power stacked rank. And this is looking at customer satisfaction with the banking app again. One of the things that we saw last year, and this again was at this point, over a year-old data because we were fielding, but we saw customer satisfaction scores were actually declining. And every bank app profiled last year declined in overall satisfaction. And then when I kind of direct your attention to the right-hand side, this is showing 2017 versus 2018 across each of the different factors that I mentioned. Every factor declined, and when we looked at, and obviously we had a lot more detail in the actual study results, but when we looked at what customers were saying, what they were telling us and why satisfaction was declining here, it was very much about, some of the bank's slower adoption of certain features, or older user interfaces, or what they perceived, I should say, to be older user interfaces in comparison to some of the expectations that they have. And so, as a whole or as an industry, not necessarily meeting expectations when it came to these banking apps. And one of the things that we did, last year was actually a full audit looking at, what features were offered by what banking apps. And so we dug into number of features offered, and we looked at the correlation to, I'll say, user experience. And as you probably would guess, obviously those that are offering, a lot of robust features and pairing it with sound usability tended to do well. And the RBC was an example of that, right? They were our top performer. They offered pretty much the most amount, I'll say, of features and strictly number of features, and they paired it with good usability and good design. and the outcome for them was they were our study award winner. And you see again where other banking apps fell specifically on this audit last year. And when we came out and gave presentations, we went into the detail behind all of this. But this is just kind of showing a high level piece of analysis when we compared features to user experience. And obviously, we know that it's more about, it's important to look at industry performance, but really, specific brand performance is important. And that's going to be the bulk of what, the custom presentations we give, are. This is an example across the border here on the U.S. Where we gave a more specific, brand recommendation. And when we give our brand recommendations or specific recommendations, we pair our quantitative data, so rankings versus best in class, and relative, strengths or weaknesses, with our quantitative, or excuse me, our qualitative verbatims. And so again, this is an example for Citi, one of many that we gave to them. But last year, their app performed near the bottom in appearance, right? And we saw customer after customer all say mentioning or complaining about the boring look of the app, right? And you can see that on the left-hand side. A lot of verbatims mentioning that they wanted more modern colors to make it, more colorful, to make it more visually appealing. And so that was an area that, we gave a recommendation. Now, excuse me, but obviously we understand there are style guidelines that have to be followed when it comes to appearance, and there's things that can and can't be done. But what we find is that recommendations, even a simple recommendation like this can sometimes give the research and support that's needed to move forward with more impactful changes. And this was a follow-up example, right? When we look at, you compare Citi to Chase, for example, I mean, it's night and day. I'm going to kind of click forward and back here, and you can look at, the difference just off of a couple screenshots. Chase uses geolocation. They have that imagery in the background, which is great, form of kind of customization. They got the easy to read card layouts. Their key features are easy to find. Headers are clearly indicated. I mean, when we talk about visually speaking, at least, this is a better user experience, a more modern looking app. And if I might say so, it looks closer to many of the apps that I'm using on a daily basis where I'm setting my expectations. So I'm going to pause there again. I'm going to see if we have any questions at this point. See, I got something in the chat here. Doesn't look like it, so I'll keep going. And again, if I miss something, we'll absolutely follow up on those questions. I just got one other piece of analysis as an example. Again, this is on the U.S. side, but this is the type of examples that we give in this study, right? And we just talked about Chase being a best practice in one area, but they have some of their own challenges as well. One of the things that we found with Chase is that they offered a very extensive feature set, but they perform poorly for range of services. And you might think, well, that's almost a bit unintuitive. And we looked at it too and said, why would a lot of customers be mentioning, that they're not performing well in range of services when they have so many different features or services that they're offering? And what we found was that it wasn't that they weren't offering them, it was that a lot of customers were having trouble finding them, right? Chase does a good job, or I'll say Chase offers contextual links, which is fine when it's done as a best practice. But they offered so many of their features through these contextual links that customers were having trouble finding certain things. If you look at those top screenshots, they were having trouble finding their card controls through an unintuitive contextual link. And this caused customers to miss certain features. And some of the same thing happened on those bottom screenshots when it comes to more detailed information, right? And so, the point of me showing this particular example today is to show you that on both apps and websites, we can get very granular with our usability and feature awareness. And what that does is, gives you very actionable and pointed recommendations on the experience that customers are having and on, key areas, that could be improved according to the voice of the customer. All right, so that's what I got for most of the content today. I'm going to pause one more time, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the deliverables that are being offered, as well as some of the key contacts that you can reach out to if there are other questions that you have as we kind of go through the process.
And I just wanted to mention real fast, they did send a message in the chat box. The handout section of your control panel does feature the study guide, the market sheet, a PDF copy of this presentation, and a copy of the 2018 mobile banking app study press release. So feel free to access those documents as soon as this presentation concludes, and they will also be sent out supplementally through an email. But feel free to get that instant gratification through that handout section as well.
Thanks, Bianca. Appreciate you being on it. So deliverables, what comes with a study subscription? There's a little bit more than these 5, but these are the 5 main study deliverables. We do give a customized executive presentation, and we are certainly going to come on site and give that presentation. I actually like to probably refer to it more of as a strategy session, right, where we can spend an hour, 2 hours, or more, really talking about the data that we saw and really giving strategic insight into recommendations for achieving your business goals. Of course, we'll have an executive briefing, and that will document key digital trends and insights. I say across the industry, but it's really across industries. So we will pull in different industries and scores, and you'll be able to really benchmark not only your performance against the other banks or credit card issuers in Canada, but you'll have an idea of how you're doing across industry as well. Certainly a brand scorecard benchmarking your company's performance and best in class, key drivers of satisfaction, all of that data is available to you. And the full data set as well, available to you around the different areas that we have in the data. And then finally, some data and analytical tools, right, for performance insights and competitive comparisons as well. All of that is available to you. So those are the main deliverables of the study. If I didn't hit on something that you were expecting, please do shoot me a note and we can talk about the deliverables there. And then with that, I have our key contacts that are listed here. I think, Frank, maybe I'll turn it over to you for a minute or two to conclude this, if that's all right.
Thanks, John. Thanks for that, John. Thanks for taking us through. As John had indicated, if there's questions, we have plenty of time here, or we can give everybody 22 minutes back in their day. If there's any follow-up that anybody wants to do on a one-on-one basis, certainly reach out to me. I'll be your primary point of contact here, and then we can engage the rest of the team as needed. So if there's nothing else from the group that we have, I want to thank you for dialing in. Thank you for your business. We certainly appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you as we get through this process on the study and any others you may be interested in. Thank you, everybody.